Show. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Kevin Stone. Kevin, how are you this evening?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm hanging in there, just dreaming of warmer weather and
Hey,
getting the
60
hell out
next
of
week.
this winter that doesn't seem to want to let go.
60 next week.
Yeah, whoopie do. Give me another 30 degrees on top of that, and I'd be happy. All right. Well, there's plenty to talk about as always. And since we don't have a read right now because we need a sponsor, I do want to remind you that if you're looking to sponsor the New England Football Show or you're looking to get involved in the football community and would like to sponsor the New England Football Show, feel free to DM either me or Kevin or shoot me an email at johnuftbj@gmail.com. Again, it's JOHNEWTFTBJ@gmail.com for more information. All right, Kevin. Some Patriots talk here. We're also going to do a quick little preview of free agency. Combine wrapping up yesterday in Indianapolis. Of course, you were all over it, both from a Patriots angle and from a Boston College and UConn standpoint. Patriots have some clearly defined needs, specifically edge, tight end, wide receiver, offensive line are their top four needs, however you want to order them. But a lot of those needs are strengths of this draft. And again, we hear the same thing every year. Oh, this draft's not that good. Oh, it's strong here, not strong there. More often than not, a lot of these drafts, unfortunately, are defined by how good the quarterback position is. Hasn't been great the last couple of years, and then the whole draft ends up getting graded down as a result of it. But nonetheless, edge is a position of strength in this draft. Patriots have a clear need there. The edge rushers really, really impressed when they worked out on Thursday. The edge guys and the defensive tackles. That's a pretty strong group. Wide receiver group, deep as usual. Maybe not the high end talent that we've seen in recent years. Offensive line group looked pretty good yesterday. What were some impressions that you took away from this weekend's combine? And were there guys that you saw that you felt could help this Patriots team?
Yeah, I mean, look, the edge rusher thing, I still think O line might be if not more important than as important. But I do see the need for an edge guy, obviously. And, we still haven't heard much about Caleb Von Chase on after that, kind of cryptic, if you will, Instagram post where he said, I think it was I'm back, if I'm not mistaken. Like there was a picture he had posted. It was only a story, but, we have to read into everything on social media these days. It's how the athlete communicates. So I'll be curious to see if we get any news on him this week with everything sort of starting to play out. Tampering starts, I think it's a week from tonight. So this is all going to start happening very, very quickly. Yeah, edge guys were good. I want to get your take on the 40 times for them because every single position, I think, except quarterback, was the fastest it's ever been. And I think that's just sort of a product of guys training for it more now than ever. But can you really take something from a 40, or is it the other stuff for the edge guys that the Patriots
Oh,
and
no, no, you can definitely take something from a 40 time, 100%.
okay,
Absolutely. Because, again, you're talking about speed, explosiveness off the snap.
sure.
If they're showing you that speed and explosiveness in the 40, you can definitely take a lot from it. Now, look, there's some positions, I've always said it, I don't really give a rat's ass what a guy runs for a 40. I'm not really going to judge him ultimately. And those positions are becoming fewer and fewer for what it's worth. But that's a position where, yes, I think 40 times matter because it's a barometer of their explosiveness and their ability to get off the block and their ability to close. And I think what we saw this weekend as a whole, it was a very impressive group in the 40 with the edge guys. It was especially impressive because, again, you're getting a lot of these edge guys that are running in that 4.5, 4.6 range. I mean, that's legit get up there. That will translate to getting off the ball, winning one-on-one and closing on the quarterback. It does matter.
So I think the good news for the Patriots is based on all of those 40s, you saw it's a deep class. We've heard it's probably the deepest position in the draft this year, which makes, I think, that 31st pick expendable if you're serious about, making a deal for an A.J. Brown or something like that. So
Oh,
again,
I'm
this is
not trading that pick.
so I wouldn't either. But I am
I'm
saying I
not.
do think
Yeah, I'm not trading that pick for AJ Brown.
I
Definitely not
agree.
trading it for AJ Brown.
No, I agree. But I'm saying I do think possibly these results make them think, hey, we can. It's a deeper draft. We can get into the
No,
second or so.
I don't think. I, I think you're playing with fire if you do that. First of all, edge is a much bigger need for them than offensive line. Again, I know people are going to continue to glom onto the Super Bowl and Will Campbell's performance and whatnot. It's a much bigger need. And I don't want to hear bullshit about Morgan Moses at right tackle and he's old. They're not moving on from Morgan Moses. He's cheap. You're getting him for $8 million a year. He's back next year. He's your right tackle. Onwenu played at a high level. He's your right guard. Only question is, what do you do with Garrett Bradbury and do you slide Wilson over? Will Campbell's your left tackle. So can they add another offensive lineman? Yes, 100%. And I could see them targeting offensive line, specifically an interior offensive lineman in free agency. But this idea that people continue to push at offensive lines their top need, it's not. That's just silly. If you think it is, you're not paying attention. It's edge. I've said it all year. There are guys short there. Potentially could end up being two guys short now if Caleb Vaughn Chase on moves on in free agency. But I think you hold on to pick 31, and I think you take the best edge guy on the board there. I don't think you overthink this, and there's going to be 3 or 4 of them there that are going to be worthy of that pick. You take one of them, the one that you think is the best system fit, best culture fit, and you live with it. I don't trade the pick for AJ Brown. I don't overthink it and pull a Bill Belichick and trade out of the first. Don't overvalue it. Stick and pick. The great organizations outside of the Patriots, who, whether you agree with the way Bill Belichick drafted or not, were on top of the world for 20 years. The other organizations that were able to compete with them during that time, the Baltimore Ravens, Indianapolis Colts, the Pittsburgh Steelers, those franchises have traditionally stuck and picked a player. They haven't bounced around the board and tried to get cute and add more picks and all this other stuff. So, in my view, I'm not putting a for sale sign on that pick. I'm staying put and I'm taking the best edge guy available. You don't overthink this. You play in the AFC. You need pass rushers in order to be a championship caliber team. You need guys that can get to the quarterback. There are a lot of those guys in this draft. Elliott Wolf said that they like the edge class in this draft. Don't overthink it at 31. Stick and pick.
So I hear you, and I am still part of me does still just want the story of AJ Brown coming here, but just to get to the guys from the
No,
combine.
use another pick to get your story. I don't want to use
Oh,
31.
I'd love to see that. But just the other local guys at the combine. Skylar Bell had a huge day. His 40 time, which is going back to how fast everybody was. I was looking today. I believe he was 12th among receivers, and I think he ran a 4.4. Like that's insane if you think about it. Just how fast some of these guys are now. But offensive line wise, Jude Bowery had a big day for himself. He was 10th in the 10-yard split, 4th in the vert, which is crazy for a guy his size. He had a 34-inch vert, and then 3rd in the broad jump, 9 feet 7 inches. So he's probably not going to do a lot at pro day. Now him and Logan Taylor, they didn't do the 3-cone, the shuttle, or the bench. So I would assume they're going to do that at BC in a few weeks. But I think Logan Jude sort of boosted his stock a little bit. Logan Taylor, on the flip side, didn't have a great day. I'd expect him to have a better showing at pro day just based on the atmosphere. And guys are due to test well or test better at home, just in a more comfortable environment.
I don't think Bowery improved his stock that much.
Really?
I think scouts are going to look at the numbers. Well, he had a bad Senior Bowl week, man.
Well,
I
and
mean,
so
I
I
think
do.
he's back to where he started before the Senior Bowl.
But
If I'm a scout, I'm not walking away from yesterday going, all right, he's moved up my list.
yeah,
I'm just not, because
well,
he did not have a good week at the Senior Bowl. He struggled in the game. I'm not trying to crap on him. He's going to need to work out at the pro day as well, because yesterday was good. It was a good positive step. But a lot of these scouts are going to have to, I don't want to say forget about the Senior Bowl or Senior Bowl week, but they're going to have to now look at this and say, okay, his testing numbers were pretty good. But again, what are we seeing on tape? What are we seeing at the Senior Bowl? Now, before last year, and he had some injury issues last year, he looked pretty good on tape. He had the profile of a guy that can play either tackle spot or even kick inside the guard. But that Senior Bowl week, he's going to need to work out at their pro day on the 23rd. I don't think he shakes that week off simply because he tested well yesterday.
Oh no, I think I'm saying I think he's gonna have to add on to what he did. But I did think he had a good day. Now, two things on him I just want to ask you real quick. One, what the hell does a vert tell you from an offensive line?
Explosiveness, their ability to get
Okay,
off the ball,
okay.
how they get off the ball, how fast they are getting off the ball, how fast they are getting their hands inside. It tells you a lot. It tells you a
So
lot because it measures short area explosiveness, that burst you want on the snap. It's more important than you think.
I'll ask you this then. Wouldn't three cone or shuttle tell you that
No,
more?
they can paint a picture for you as well, but
Okay.
that vertical shows you how explosive they are from the waist down.
Okay. No, just curious. And on him, the injuries are an issue. Like that guy's had
Yeah.
trouble staying healthy for a couple years now. He was hurt in camp, and sort of fought through it all year. But that was a good first step for him yesterday.
Yeah, and again, it's going to help him shake off Senior Bowl week. It just
Yeah,
wasn't good, and I look. I think the world of the kid. He was great to cover at Boston College. I think he
he's
could
awesome.
play in the league. I
Yep,
think he could be a potential starter in the NFL. But he did not acquit himself well in Mobile. Yesterday certainly helped him bounce back. You hope that on the 23rd at BC's Pro Day, he takes another step in bouncing back and helps himself for sure. I mean, look, the athleticism is there, the versatility is there. As I mentioned, he can play both tackle spots, he can play guard. He's a good football player. He's got to stay healthy. But again, at times he really struggled with speed guys Senior Bowl week. You saw it at the practices, you saw it in the game. He has got to prove to people that he's better than that. And again, testing well will help, but you also got to prove it on the field because ultimately that's what matters. I mean, it doesn't matter how well you test if it doesn't translate on the football field. So we'll see. You mentioned Logan Taylor. I suspect he'll work out at their pro day on the 23rd as well. And you'll see other guys work out at that pro day as well, namely Lewis Bond, who did not get an opportunity to participate at the combine, and Q Hutchins, who did get an opportunity to work out on Thursday. He too will get another shot at things on the 23rd at BC's pro day. Uh, you mentioned that the so-called tampering period in the NFL begins a week from today, and you're going to start to hear speculation about guys potentially signing with teams probably as early as Sunday. But you'll really hear, who's signing with who a week from now. We'll potentially have some Patriot news that we'll be talking about on the show a week from tonight. When you look at free agency, and again, I think it depends on who you talk to. When you look at free agency and the draft, what are their top needs? For me, as I've said all along, and I'm going to maintain it, it's edge, it's offensive line, it's tight end, it's wide receiver, it's safety. Those are their top five needs. Now you can move them around. I think edge is a clear one. I think safety, if it's not two, it could be three. I think it's a bigger need for them than tight end and wide receiver because Jalen Hawkins is a free agent. You don't know if he's going to come back. You have Craig Woodson, who was terrific as a rookie, but you don't have much else there. So that's a bigger need for them than people think. So, with all that said, it'll be interesting to see what direction they go in free agency because they're not going to address all of these needs in free agency. They are going to address some of these needs in the draft as well. Where do you want to see them go in free agency in terms of how they address their needs?
So edge probably is one, just because look, we all know what people say and think about them when it comes to money. And they spent a ton last year, but now how do they treat it? Is it just a stay pat kind of free agency, or is it hey let's step on the gas? Because if it's a let's step on the gas free agency, well then Trey Hendrickson is a name. I'd love to see him take a run at. I don't think they're going to, but
Yeah, I'm
again,
all set on Trey Hendrickson, but anyway.
so I knew you would be, but
Well,
um,
I liked him coming out of college, but I mean he's on the wrong side of 30,
age,
man.
yeah, no, I get it.
And I'm
Um,
not overpaying that guy. I'm just not.
so admittedly, when it comes to free agency, I feel like a lot of people are this way, even in the media. the fan comes out a little bit, right? Like you want to see them make that big splash just because it's noteworthy, and everybody loves to see and hear their team in the headline. So that's part of where my thinking comes from. But edge, yeah, edge number one. If we're talking strictly free agency, receivers up there. Tight end's interesting to me because Hunter Henry's been so reliable, but that's another guy who's getting older every year as well too. Austin Hooper is a free agency. Is a free agent. Free agency. Yeah, he's been good for you, but how long are you going to keep going back to that well? So I do think tight end's an interesting spot. Guy Isaiah Likely is out there who I would love to see come home if they could ever get that done. I think Kyle Pitts just got franchise tagged last week, so that's sort of off the board. But Isaiah Likely is a name I'd love to see come back to this area. And then you mentioned safety. You don't really think about it, but we talked about Jalen Hawkins in that same sort of conversation with Caleb Von Jason for 2 months now. I think you and I have been sort of the only ones that consistently bring him up. He feels like he could be a leader for that defense going forward for the next 5 or 10 years if they want him back. Now it's his first chance at a good payday, so you never know. But I'm with you in terms of sort of those being the targets, either in the draft or free agency. But if you're gonna spend money, I'd like to see it on edge, on tight end, and on safety.
All right, we've got some comments coming in. Our good friend Mr. G Fetty is checking in. Thanks for checking in, Mr. G Fetty. Appreciate it as always. He says, "Let's go, Pats Nation, baby." He also says, "I like this draft, honestly. I think it's a better draft than people think." Again, like I said, people oftentimes will judge a draft based on the quarterback position, and I don't think it's fair. I really don't. But again, it speaks to how much of a barometer the quarterback position is now to where it'll affect an entire draft. Now, next year, potentially, everybody's been touting that draft class now since last year because you're going to have a bunch of quarterbacks, because you're going to have Jeremiah Smith. Everybody already assumes that's going to be a great class, but it may not be as good up front. It may not be as good on the edge. This class will be hard to top when it comes to edge guys and pass rushers. I mean, this is a very, very talented group. Mr. G Fetty continues edge and interior offensive line, maybe safety in this draft. Yeah, I agree. I think that those are the three areas that you could see them go early in this draft and probably settle on a tight end early to middle of day three and then take a flyer on a receiver. I would be really surprised if they took a receiver early unless it was a really good value pick, kind of like Travion Henderson last year when they took him in the second round. Mr. G Fetty continues. I'd like to see Cyrus Allen or Bryce Lance if they're available more than Brown. Get them young and cheap. Get them players young and cheap and develop. I'm not a big Bryce Lance guy. I know a lot of people are. You kind of already have that with Kyle Williams. He's a little longer. You can make the case he might be a little bit more explosive. I know that all the draft experts around here are next. All the Patriot bloggers love him. I'm sure they saw him play never. But they all love him, but I don't love him because other people love him. I simply don't think that that's what you need. I mean, you kind of have that already in Kyle Williams. You need to see if you can expand that type of player. You already have that with Demario Douglas. Kayshon Bouttie's also emerged as a vertical threat, especially in plus territory. What I'd rather see them do at the wide receiver position, to be honest with you, is go out and get yourself a big X receiver, a guy that's 6'2", 6'3", that can win contested catch situations in the red zone. That's what they lack. They lack that big-bodied X receiver that can play split end on the backside and take advantage of man coverage. They don't have that. Bootie's the closest thing they've had to it, but they don't really have that guy. And I think they need to find that guy. I'd rather they go out and get that type of a receiver than somebody like a Bryce Lance. So we'll see.
Real quick,
Mr. G Fetty, thanks for checking in. Mike Bonarigo checks in. Thanks for checking in, Mike. He says would love to see David Njoku. Yeah, I think Njoku could be in play. Obviously, Njoku and Vrabel know each other from Vrabel's time in Cleveland. Kevin mentioned Isaiah Likely. I think he could be in play as well. Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM, has come out and said that they're going to make a push to keep him. But I don't know if you need to keep him if you're Baltimore. You have Mark Andrews, who you're paying. You have Charlie Kohler, who could be your second tight end. I don't buy that they're going to make this hardcore push to keep Likely. I think Likely could be in play here. Go ahead, Stone.
No, I was just going to ask if they are to spend big in one area. Where do you think it is? Do you think it's edge?
Um, well, the thing is, ideally, you could say it's edge. I don't think you're going to need to know. I don't think you're going to need to go overboard there, though. You could potentially still draft a guy at 31 and then sign someone like a Draymond Jones, a Boye Mafe, a player like that, a Malcolm Kuntz, a veteran guy, kind of like you did last year with Landry and Chason, and add him to the mix. What I would love to see them do is re-sign Chason, add one of those veterans, a guy like I just mentioned, and draft a guy at 31. Because again, you're in a league now. It's been a pass first league for a long time. You got to be able to rush the passer, but you especially have to be able to do it in the AFC where you're facing Allen twice a year. Next year, you're going to see Mahomes, if depending on when they play them. You're going, you could see Joe Burrow in the playoffs. You're going to see Justin Herbert again, like
Jordan Love,
Jordan Love. Like you need, but I'm strictly talking
AFC.
AFC.
Yeah.
In the AFC, where you have the better quarterbacks in the league, you need multiple pass rushers. You need to have guys that can get after it. And hey, not for nothing, right? The NFL is a copycat league. All you got to do is look at the Seattle Seahawks and what they did to you in that Super Bowl. And you got to take that blueprint and you got to bring it to New England. You got to say, you know what? It was nice what we got out of those guys last year. We need even more. Let's go out and add at least two more edge guys and give ourselves a really good rotation that we can use based on down and distance.
Well,
So,
really, you can go back to the last handful of Super Bowls. Look at the one Tampa Bay won; they were disruptive. The one the Rams won; they were extremely disruptive. Philly, and then last year. So
yeah.
I'm with you there. Just I would like to see him spend a receiver, just because I feel like that side of the ball they can figure out. Like Vrabel and Cowden and Wolf are smart enough to figure out defense. I think you do need to spend to get Drake some help, but I would like to see them spend everywhere. Frankly,
Well, I think, again,
easier said
well,
than done.
Ken Matthias, right, it is. Ken Matthias checks in. He says, should the Pats stand pat at 31 or potentially package it for a player like Brian Thomas? Again, I'm not trading that pick. People are entitled to their opinions and what they think. I'm not trading that pick for a receiver. I'm just not going to do it. I'm a firm believer you build from the inside out. You got to be able to win the line of scrimmage. If you can't win the line of scrimmage, who gives a shit what you have at receiver? And at the end of the day, you saw that in the Super Bowl. Seattle dominated the line of scrimmage. We said it going into that game that whichever team can control the line of scrimmage and win the line of scrimmage was going to win the game. Seattle won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They won the game, and they won the game handily. So I think if you're the Patriots, that's got to be your focal point. I'm not trading 31 here to go get AJ Brown or Brian Thomas. If those teams are desperate enough to trade those guys, well, more power to them. We'll put in an offer. Well, I mean, I'm sure the Patriots are going to be in on both guys, but I'm not giving up 31. And maybe I am overvaluing 31. And maybe the Patriots are going to look at this as an opportunity to get better, give up 31 for Brian Thomas, and then maybe they think, hey, edge is good enough that maybe in the second round we can go get an R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma or eventually a Joshua Josephs. At the end of the day, they're going to look at it a lot different than we will. But I'm not giving up the 31st pick for AJ Brown. Would I entertain it possibly for Brian Thomas? I don't know. Maybe I'd have to get a pick back with him. I would not overreach for these receivers because you got to remember the other thing. Everybody wants AJ Brown. Two things you got to remember about his situation. One, Philly's got to be willing to get kicked in the nuts this year when it comes to their salary cap. If they're not willing, look, the thumbs up popped up because I'm doing the thumbs up. If they're not willing to take a kick in the nuts in terms of the cap so that they can have long-term flexibility, he's not going anywhere. And then the other part of it is even if you do get him here, you have to extend him. You have to figure out a way to rework the money because he's going to be too expensive to fit into the under the cap, especially if somehow you keep Stephon Diggs, which according to Andrew Callahan and Doug Kine appears to be a possibility now based on what they wrote yesterday. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be easier said than done. to get those guys. Stone, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you want to see them trade 31 for
Well,
Brian Thomas?
him, no, I'm firmly, and this is more because of the relationship. I think if you're gonna bring a guy like that in, AJ Brown, you can never say someone will seamlessly fit in, but I think he'd be willing to quickly buy in to that culture that you built. So, and in terms of the extension, I think he might be willing to play ball a little bit more because of that. So I'm willing to move 31 for him, not for Brian Thomas. I just think it's Jacksonville. I don't necessarily trust a guy coming from Jacksonville, although Liam Cohen did do a hell of a job last year. But so look, we've talked over the last
Yeah,
what
but Thomas wasn't a big part of that offense last year.
no.
He
So
was much better his rookie year.
yeah. So look, if they go get him, I'm not going to complain. Like it's help for Drake, and that's ultimately where I'm at. Is I want as much help for him as possible, which is why I really would like Isaiah Likely. I feel like the tight end could be more of a weapon in this offense with Josh McDaniels and it's Ben. But in general, look, if you're going to spend 31, we've talked about it for a while. For what 3, 4 years, even going back to Belichick, you don't have that core yet. And if you can keep building that core, you did a hell of a job last year. Like this rookie class had a huge impact. If you can now stack those on top of each other and have two in a row of guys that you have under control for years to come, well, now you're talking about sort of really building that dynasty back up. So it's a fine balance between getting rid of those picks to win now and still making sure you have that core. I have faith in this whole Cowden, Wolf, sort of Vrabel trio, and even Stretch to a certain extent to get this right. But they have to pick and choose. But I understand what you're saying in terms of that core is still important. You still need those guys on those cheap deals. So it's going to be a fine line here.
So don't forget, they may extend Christian Gonzalez this offseason.
Yeah,
So
you need that money
they could
too.
be putting their acorns away for that too. So we'll see. I don't. They're not going to be. I think they'll be selective. I think their approach will be very similar to what we saw from the Patriots going from the 03 to the 04 season before they got to that Super Bowl in Houston against Carolina. I think you're going to see them go out and target specific veterans that they think they can bring in to augment what they have. I don't think they're going to go nuts here and spend a bunch of money when, again, if you're serious about keeping Christian Gonzalez, you're more than likely going to have to extend him this offseason if you want to keep him here long term. So we'll see. Mr.
Oh,
G. Fetty says Bryce Lance can. I've watched him for 4 years. He's 6'3". He used to play running back before making the switch to wide receiver. Great. I still don't want any part of him. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think he's a need, but it is what it is. We all have our opinions, man. Thank you for checking in and promoting Bryce Lance. I'm out, as my good friend Joe Murray would say on Bryce Lance.
just
Go ahead, Stone.
On Christian Gonzalez. There was a report today, and I wish I remembered where it was from.
I know.
That
What a
said the
surprise you
Patriots
don't remember where
just
anything is
stunning. I
from.
know. That the money
I
that
thought you
they,
said you were going to be 38.
yeah, Thursday.
I don't. Why do you act like you're 80 though? Why don't you? And this is a serious question. Why
Uh-huh.
don't you remember things?
It's funny. I used to have a great memory, and it just sort of disappeared.
Yeah, I think
I
I
don't know
know
what to tell
why.
you.
But go ahead.
Yeah, me too. On Gonzalez, there was a report today saying that the money that they would spend on him may or signing him to his deal may only or it may be determined by how much money goes out this coming free agency. So does that tell you that they might spend? Like, is that sort of a hint at them spending? Because if not, you can get that done right now, technically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not quite sure I understand the point of the report. Uh,
So
if they
so
spend the, what does that mean?
no, so let's say they want to get it done right now, which technically they should want to. We've said that for weeks now.
Right,
But
right. But what does it mean? Forget
but they're
about
waiting.
Gonzalez for a sec.
No, but they're waiting to get that done until free agency ends and they see how much money they've had out the door. So if they're not doing that contract now, does it tell you, hey, they might spend a lot here?
No, I don't think it tells you that at all.
Okay.
I mean, I think a lot of it is going to come down to they can't possibly. They're not going to run it back with last year's team.
Well, you can't.
So you're going to need to free up money. You can't be active in free agency, even with the cap space that they have, Because remember, you got to also look at it from the perspective of real dollars. You can't be active in free agency and not make some moves to free up cap space so that you're active enough to reinforce the roster and pay him. Right now, you can't do both, realistically speaking. You can't necessarily add an impact player or two and pay him. So I suspect you're going to see some movement on the roster here. There's going to be guys that are going to be cut or moved. They're going to try to free up some cap space here. It's not simply going to be, all right, we're playing with 40, 42 million. Let's go out and use 25 and then spend the rest on him. Because, I mean, Gonzalez is probably going to command 25 million a year, 25 million a year. I mean, realistically speaking. So
Yeah, I was gonna say 30 even.
he'd be setting the market at that point. He'd be setting the market at 25. You have to look at
Yeah.
Surtain's deal and Stingley's deal
Yeah.
and take a look at their AAV in order to compare. But I mean, again, they're going to have to make a couple moves here to free up money if they want to be able to spend and re-sign him or sign him to an extension, I should say.
We just haven't touched on it real quick. There was a report, I think it was Mark Daniels, that Tonga almost signed back, and then the deal fell through. Do you expect him back? I'd love him back, but that's a guy who might get paid right now.
I mean, he's a rotational defensive tackle who could spot start. Who's going to pay him, and what are they going to pay him?
Well, by pay, I mean maybe overpay compared to
I
what the
don't know if
Patriots
he's not going to get overpaid. Where I think this becomes an issue for the Patriots is term. Do you want to go how do you want to structure the contract with him? Do you want to do a year with an option? Do you want to do 2 years with an option? I think in the case of Kyrus Tonga, it's going to be more about term than AAV. Ultimately, it's going to come down to how many years you want to give him. So
Yeah, no, I was just wondering what you thought. I thought he was a really good locker room guy, but I do think he's going to want to get something maybe more than he's offered or being offered here, especially with the years.
yeah, yeah, we'll see. And again, I think all of this stuff makes for good conversation, right? Like even going back to Bryce Lance, I'm not saying they shouldn't draft him, but I know a lot of people are jockeying him on X, and that's great. But I don't think the receiver is a position of need the first 2 days. I really don't. And I know people are they're gonna poo poo what I'm saying, and oh, this guy's a blowhard. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Blah blah blah. But I again, I'm a firm believer that if you want to get back to the Super Bowl, stay in Super Bowl contention, you got to build from the inside out. And I'd rather they address edge. I'd rather they address the interior of the offensive line. I'd rather they address inside linebacker. I'd rather they address defensive tackle even to a degree, especially if Tonga leaves. You're going to need that third guy. Right now it would be Joshua Farmer, but you're going to need that third guy. And oh, by the way, we don't know what they're going to do with Christian Barmore either. It's not a given that he's back. So I mean, again, I know people want to point to tackle on offense and receiver, and people fall in love with receivers. You know that. People around here fall in love with receivers, including some people that are our colleagues up there, where they're like, "Oh, I knew they were going to take Kyle Williams. I love Kyle Williams. Oh, Kyle Williams." But
I know exactly what
relax.
you're talking about.
The
So
best teams are built from the inside out, and you can find the perimeter pieces later on. And that could be a Bryce Lance. Who knows? I like him as a player. I'm not saying I don't like him as a player, but you kind of already have a little bit of that, even though he's a longer version. You kind of already have a little bit of that. So how much more of that do you want to add? I would rather see a bigger bodied receiver who can win in plus territory. Lance he's Christian Watson 2.0 to me. I mean, that's a guy that can win vertically, but I don't know how much he wins one-on-one in those contested catch situations. So we'll see.
no, I hear you. It's funny too in terms of we talked a bunch about Bob Douglas. If they ever move on from him, I'd love to see Sky Bell or even Lewis Bond sort of take his role over. But now I'm just
I would
there's
love Skylar Bell, and I'm not saying it because we covered him.
no his speed
I think I
at that
think when you
combine.
look at what they need outside of an X, I think what you need is a young Z or an F that if you decide to move on from Diggs this year or even next offseason, can step in and play those snaps and be productive. Skylar Bell, you're talking about a guy that's 6 foot, 190 pounds. We know the speed is there. The route running is elite. The ability, the catch radius for his size is above average. He can play in space. He can make people miss. He's a guy that can stack and separate. He runs a complete route tree conceptually. I love the kid, and I think he's tough as hell. He
Well,
can play inside the hashes. He can make those contested catches in certain situations. I think he's the perfect Z or F, and I think he'd be a great fit in this system, especially if you draft him now and develop him.
and you mentioned the contested catches. He was fifth in the vert. He had a 41-inch vert at the combine. So he can go up too. It's just, and again, I bring up that speed. I think he'd honestly be able to give you more than Pop does. And I see the comment there. Chisholm's interesting because I do think you might see a little more of him this season.
Yeah, yeah, I do too. I do too. I mean, I don't love Efton Chisholm, but I agree with both of you here, you and Mr. G. Fetty. I think you're going to see more of him. He's going to get more of an opportunity. And again, receiver is an interesting position for them too, because Bob Douglas is going into the last year of his contract. Keyshawn Booty going into the last year of his contract. So what do you do with those two guys? One of those
Well,
guys could potentially get moved.
well, I
So
was gonna say if you had to pick one, you go with Booty, right? In terms of keep him.
I would keep Booty over
Yeah,
Pop Douglas,
yeah, I would
especially
too.
because I think Efton Chisholm could give you what Douglas
Yep.
does.
Yeah,
So
agree.
I would keep Keyshawn Booty. You are watching the New England Football Show. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by my partner, the incomparable Kevin J. Stone. Kevin J. Stone here. Stone, let's switch gears here and talk some college football. What do you think?
Sure, season's basically here already.
Yeah, I know, and that I'm sure that depresses you. All right,
No,
well, spring ball is kicking off this week. Of course, Harvard kicked off on Saturday with their first practice. We had a chance Friday at the New England Coaches Clinic to talk to Andrew Orich. Great interview there. And UConn kicks off tomorrow. Bryant kicks off on Thursday, and then a bunch of schools kick off in earnest the next 2 weeks after that, including Boston College and UMass. I'm excited for UConn kicking off tomorrow. Kicks off the Jason Candle era in stores. Coming off the highly successful Jim Mora era, UConn will continue to look to build on that with Jason Candle. 58 new players on that roster. Here we are talking about how many new faces Boston College has brought in. UConn has brought in twice as many new players under Jason Candle. A lot of talent has been brought in, but boy, a lot of talent has left the Burton Center as well. I mean, I'm looking forward to this spring, but this is a big spring, and I got a piece coming out tomorrow morning on this. The amount of quarterback competitions you're going to have during spring ball here in New England this year. I'm excited about seeing this UConn team this spring and what Jason Candle and this staff are going to do. There's going to be a lot of competition there. There's going to be a lot of new faces. We are not going to recognize this UConn football team from what we've known the last 3 years.
honestly, I'm looking forward to getting the roster from Bill Peterson so we can start learning some of these guys. But I want to ask you this actually, just in terms of coaching, you always hear this time of year, it's important for us to gel, whether that's the weight room, whether it's meeting rooms, whatever it is. What does that entail? Like, is it all coach speak, or and I know it's
No.
not, but in terms
Yeah.
of 15 practices, how do you get that to start heading into training camp?
Well, I mean, you take advantage of all 15 of your practices, including the spring game. That's why I think Candle doing a spring game is a
So
terrific
smart.
idea.
Yeah.
I think it's smart. And I think we have to get back to spring games. I think it creates competition, especially now that you have the one portal window. I think that it creates competition. It gives you a pretty good idea of what you have in terms of what you've put in and what you've done the 14 practices leading up to that. And I'm sure they'll scrimmage a couple practices in there as well. But I think when it comes to teams coming together and gelling and being formed, yeah, the foundation is spring ball because you can really begin the process of putting this team together, setting a foundation, and then carrying that over to summer workouts and fall camp eventually. So I think it's vitally important. I think because of the portal and all the stupid movement we've seen the last few years, I think that we've lost sight of the importance of spring practice. Spring practices are vitally important for the development of your football team, specifically your younger players. This is going to be a big spring for Jason Candle. This is going to be a big spring for Sean Goldrich up at UNH. This is going to be a big spring for Bill O'Brien at Boston College. You need to have a strong spring to set a foundation for the fall. And I think that's what you're going to see here. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going to see a lot of quarterback competitions in the area this spring. UConn being one of them. You've got the Tennessee transfer, Jake Merklinger, competing against Tucker McDonald, and the Toledo transfer, Caleb Osborne. Boston College, we talked about this. Mason McKenzie, we talked about him
Harvard too.
recently. Yeah, Grayson Wilson, Femi Babalola. So there's going to be a lot of competition at the quarterback position throughout the region this spring, but that's where those spring practices are vitally important.
Yeah, we talked to Coach Ulrich the other day about Harvard. They don't know
Yeah.
who their quarterback is right now, and as you mentioned, they started the other day. But
Yeah, they've got a competition between Dante Torres, Charlie Smith, and Sam Kaiser. So we'll see.
yeah. Oh, that's what train thought. Oh, just in terms of UConn. Well, I went to Harvard real quick, so the mind
No, you
no
you
go
might
no,
have gone to Harvard to visit, but you didn't go to Harvard.
believe me, I used to say it all the time when I covered swimming at MIT. That's the only time I ever stepped foot in that building. But as far as UConn goes, we talked about the spring game. It's huge for those fans, just in terms of getting to know the program. They've been so successful, well, by UConn standards, so successful the last few years. You hear a new coach and you hear a new roster, and I think fans are kind of automatically just skeptical or assume that things are going to go downhill. But what if they don't? What if Kendall can keep it going? What if this does continue to become a football school again? I think that's where UConn can sort of be dangerous in terms of not taking over New England, but sort of leaving their mark rather than BC, rather than UMass. UMass has an uphill battle, anyways. You obviously know that. But in terms of being the school in New England that recruits really start to look at even more, I think Kendall might be able to kind of to keep this team where they are, and I think this spring ball can kind of set that in motion.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. There's no question in my mind that Jason Candle can build on what Jim Mora established, and potentially get the program to another level. And another level for UConn right now would be getting into a
Conference,
conference.
yeah,
Another level would be getting to 10, 11 wins on a consistent basis. So there is another level of two there for UConn to achieve. This idea that they're going to become the preeminent FBS school in New England, I don't know about that. I mean, Boston College is in the ACC. They're in a conference. They have more history, more tradition.
that's fair.
They've been in FBS or Division One A school longer. It's going to be hard to do. It's a program that has more national recognition. But again, UConn, as we saw last year, UConn came up here and beat him. They've beaten him twice in the last three meetings. They've certainly proved that they deserve to be in that conversation. But let's not get this twisted. It's going to be a long road here for Jason Candle and his staff. You're a first year staff. You got a lot of new faces that you need to get acclimated to your program and the way you do things. So I think at the end of the day, we could sit here and talk about him continuing what Jim Mora established. But if Jason Candle's going to put his own fingerprints on this and his own imprint, we need to give him time here. We need to be realistic. The expectations need to be realistic for this program. Their schedule is sneaky tough. They've got some tough away games. So it's not going to be that easy. I think a lot of people think, well, it's Jason Candle. He won at Toledo. He brought in a lot of new faces to replace a lot of the guys that were there. They're going to be fine. I would pump the brakes. When you're talking 58 new players, that's a lot. That is a ton of turnover, and that is hard to get all those guys on the same page. It's going to take all of spring ball. It's going to take all fall camp to get these guys to be at the same level and to be on the same page. And again, I think like with Boston College, like with UConn, like with UNH, like with Harvard, potentially Maine, all of these programs that are going to have quarterback competitions, I think these quarterback competitions are going to go well into the fall. So I don't think you're going to see either one of these schools name a starter at the earliest until the second week of fall camp. I would be shocked if any of these schools named a starter at the end of spring ball. I really would.
No, I would too.
I think that the competition is going to go well into fall camp. We had a good weekend this weekend at the New England Coaches Clinic at Gillette Stadium. Got to see Clark Lee, the head coach at Vanderbilt, speak. That was pretty good.
Awesome.
Kevin Cahill spoke. That was good. We also spoke with Coach Cahill. Unfortunately, we had some audio issues with our microphone. We're hoping to fix that video as well as several other videos. And once they're fixed, we'll upload them from this past weekend. But overall, it was a good weekend of football up at Gillette at the New England Coaches Clinic.
Yeah, I've quickly it's become one of my favorite events of the year since I started going with you, what, 4 or 5 years ago now. So it's awesome. Speaking of BC, had the chance to talk to Matt Thurn, the special teams coach, and Coach DiBiaso, quarterbacks coach, obviously. I'm excited for how excited they are. And now, look, obviously, there's going to be some coach speak at those type of events, but just sort of gauging how they really feel about the program through winter workouts and all that. And I've said this, and we both said this since they brought in their portal hall. There's something to be said for a roster of kids who all have chips on their shoulder and guys who all have something to prove. And I do think BC is full of that right now, and that hasn't necessarily been the case for the last few years. There's been a lot of guys where, yeah, Bill O'Brien preaches competition, but I think we sort of knew who was starting when and at what position going into training camp for the most part. That's no longer the case. Every single position is wide open, say maybe tight end with Kalen Chazinski and strong safety with KP Price. Like, other than that, I think everything's wide open, and the coaching staff is generally excited. So it was great to talk to them and just sort of hear their enthusiasm. They're human. They hear all the noise about the program and all that, and they're looking forward to proving people wrong. So that was fun. Coach Clark Lee, you mentioned him from Vanderbilt. Incredible speech. Not a single thing about X's and O's for about 45
Yeah.
minutes or an hour, really just about life. And I can't recommend, if you ever have a chance to listen to him speak at a clinic or anywhere else, please do so. He was phenomenal. And then obviously, just all the support we got and continue to get from the high school community. Can't thank people enough.
All right, Mike checks in. He says, "Who is BC's starting running back this year?"
Great question. I do know Mike Hart is the new running backs coach. Obviously went to Michigan, won at Michigan as a player and a coach. So he'll have that room ready to go. Do not be surprised if Bo McCormick from BB&N ends up sort of maybe taking over a role there. He got a chance early on last year to prove himself on special teams. He took the ball, no pun intended, and ran with it. I think he legitimately has a shot to get a ton of reps this year running back.
Sims Makai Dodd, I think, could
And
get some
two,
carries as well. Guy that I think could end
transfers.
up potentially being their starting running back is Evan Dickens, the
Yep,
transfer from Liberty. He was impressive last year at
he's
Liberty,
awesome.
rushing for over 1,400 yards. He's the real deal. And I think Boston College, one of the things we're going to see this year is they're going to go back to running the football, prioritizing the running game, getting under center a little bit more. I think if Mason McKenzie ends up being their starting quarterback, I think you have a potential playmaker there who can make unscripted plays. I think at the end of the day, you will see more of an emphasis on running the football and using the running game to set the tone offensively. And that's going to help the quarterbacks get acclimated to playing an O'Brien system as well. But Evan Dickens is a name to keep an eye on. I think he could potentially end up being their starting running back. I think Bo McCormick is going to be a big part of their plans, and I think he's going to continue to be one of their primary return guys as well. So I think that he is a player to watch. Old Man Willem checks in. He says, "Hey guys, I hope winter is treating you well." Old Man Willem, it's great to hear from you, my friend. No, it's not. Winter sucks. Screw it. I hope it goes to hell and never comes back. All right. Any final thoughts here, Stone, before we wrap it up? A little bit of a shorter show tonight, but next week, once the free agent signings start coming in, Patriots heavy show next week, spring ball heavy show next week. Figured we'd get into some high school talk here. And by the way, before you give me your final thoughts, a couple of news and notes from the high school ranks. Lamont Penn was named the head football coach at Attleboro High School. Penn was the defensive coordinator for Ian Bain at Bridgewater Raynham last year. Matt Blood has stepped down from Uxbridge after winning back-to-back Super Bowls. Blood stepped down. He will be an assistant coach at Holliston High School. We still have openings at Somerset Berkeley, Northbridge. We haven't heard anything on Wellesley yet, if they filled their opening. We still have several openings in Connecticut as well as some openings, a couple of openings in Rhode Island and New Hampshire as well. So we still have a bunch of openings in New England that we hope get filled here in the coming days and weeks. Now, Stone, do you have any final thoughts?
No, one opening I would, maybe not an opening, but some news in the MVC might be coming along soon. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we'll be at another clinic this weekend down in Newport, the Big New England Clinic. Always, since we started going to this, same thing. I always enjoy going to this one and looking forward to it. Jeremy Springer is a keynote speaker on Friday. I know there's a few others, but I'll be down there for him. And we'll be doing the same thing this weekend. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And again, we do apologize. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties this weekend with some of our content from the New England Coaches Clinic. So we hope to get that squared away and get those videos out there. And we hope not to have those issues this weekend. We'll do everything we can to make sure that our audio issues are taken care of before this weekend's clinic. All right. Great job tonight, Stone. Appreciate the time as always.
You too, man.
All right. That'll do it for this week's episode of the New England Football Show. For Kevin Stone, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next week. Stay tuned because Mike Willie from the league, head coach at BBNN, is going to be joining me here momentarily on a special edition of the Coaches Chat. We're going to talk about league tryouts kicking off this weekend. And as always, New England Football Journal is your exclusive home for the league this spring, so follow along. Until next time, for Kevin Stone, I'm John Sarianides. Peace.
See ya.